Hello, we're here. What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. We have dabbled here and there in 2026 on this channel, addressing this fear that has just been bubbling up more and more amongst therapists that like private practice is going by the wayside pretty much, between people turning to AI for mental health support and big tech therapy companies continuing to grow. Does that mean that there's less and less room for those of us in private practice? I stand by what I've said before. Private practice is not going anywhere, but I do think there is great value in being strategic, and within that, making sure we differentiate ourselves from whatever the heck that stuff is that's out there. But in today's episode, I'd like to take a bit of a different angle and really just remind ourselves that the things that are most core to our profession and our clinical training are exactly what differentiate us in private practice from some of these really big tech companies and AI. So I'm proposing that we don't need to learn some like new strategy or hop on some trend in order to sustain our practices, but by coming back to the whole reason why we're here, the roots of our clinical training, we can differentiate ourselves from big tech therapy and AI. I realize that might not make any sense yet. I will explain, do not worry. Now, I can't claim to know why is my specific practice staying full while I hear other therapists report that, inquiries are dropping down, people aren't staying on as long, these different ways that it's been much more of a struggle to keep their practice full. I have some guesses. Some of them I've talked about, right? I think there's something about specializing that is extra valuable right now, because anything that can differentiate us from these sort of big giant companies and AI will only help us. I do believe that. But I think there's more to it than that. We're venturing into the land of Maria's just sharing thoughts. These are thoughts and opinions. I'm just going to put them out there so you can listen to them, chew on them, and form your own thoughts and opinions or whatever. All that said, I have this thought, this hunch, this musing, if you will, that this cluster of facets of how I approach my work might potentially have something to do with like why clients stay on, why they refer, friend of a friend to me, why they feel like our work is different than other therapy experiences they've had in the past. Because a lot of clients will tell me they've had disappointing experiences with prior therapists. There's this sort of cluster of facets to my approach that might have something to do with that. And they all kind of go together, but they're kind of different facets to my approach. One, I'm always assessing. This is something, at least for me, that I was taught in graduate school, like in my actual classes, I should say, of graduate school, in my textbooks. We are always assessing. Therapy is meant to be dynamic. So as we implement our treatment with our client, we learn new things about our client, and it is our job. It's part of our role to take on that new information and allow it to shift our treatment plan, our work with our clients. So this is where this ties back to a point I made at the beginning of this episode, that by leaning into what we have been taught to do as therapists, some core tenets of our work, we are inherently differentiating ourselves from a lot of these big tech companies. And not just big tech companies. Like if I go back to my training days, when I worked in community mental health, when I worked in hospital systems, the workplaces that I worked at required a certain level of productivity from us in order to stay open, because productivity equaled funding. And if we didn't keep up a certain level of productivity, then these clinics would close because they wouldn't have enough money. all the empathy for this situation, right? It's not like my immediate supervisor or boss created this scenario. This is the systemic issue that we're operating in this field in the United States. This is how it's designed and we're stuck in it. So on the one hand, in my training at school, I'm being taught to keep assessing, keep adapting. And in my training at, say, practicum and internship, theoretically, yeah, we were supposed to keep adapting, but like we also needed to see a ridiculous amount of clients per week. You might just have to stick to the initial protocol that you decided you were going to implement. If you let yourself veer off course, it would take more time, more energy, more mental capacity that is just not available when you're working that hard and that much. So when we're in private practice, then we have hopefully the opportunity to be compensated enough for our work to follow through on this tenet of what we've been taught as therapists in a way that could be effective in offering really tailored therapy to our clients. The next facet that comes to mind is we always assume that we might have missed something. Now, if we take that to the extreme, it could be problematic if I'm just always doubting my assessment. But the idea of like, I know I've never discovered everything there is to discover about this client. And I have to assume that if I keep going, I may discover new information about this client that changes my perspective about them. It doesn't mean that whatever we're doing right now is useless, but it does create an adaptive environment. So that brings us to the next facet, right? We got always assessing, we got humility really is the next one. They're like, I don't know everything. I haven't learned everything there is to know about this client. And the next one is curiosity. Are you seeing how those kind of like go together? If I don't always know everything there is to know, if I'm always assessing, then it's a natural outcome to stay curious. Like if a client is stuck, let's say, okay, we've been working on this treatment plan, it's not going anywhere. Rather than just saying, oh, I'm writing off this client, they just don't want to do the work. The first question I should be asking is like, I wonder if I'm missing something. I wonder if there's something else here that I'm not seeing, if there's something about, maybe it's my own walls are up, defenses, biases. I don't have to be mean to myself about it. I can be curious with myself about that too. But like, what else could be going on here? If I were working in some of the prior settings that I worked in where productivity was king, hearing this would just stress me out. I would feel like, am I supposed to work harder than my client then? Am I supposed to work at burnout levels when maybe I already am? And I think this is all coming back to my point that in private practice, because of the hinging difference that typically therapists in private practice have the capacity to get compensated adequately for the work that they're doing, then you don't have to see so many clients that now there's no capacity left to keep assessing, to stay curious, to assume that you maybe haven't seen everything yet that there is to see about this client, and allow yourself to discover those things. Because there's not time, there's not capacity. And so as I was reflecting on this episode, kind of putting it together, I was thinking like, I wonder if some of us would benefit from like just sort of that permission slip of like, we were taught to do therapy like this. And then maybe in our training settings, in our workplaces, we were asked to do therapy a bit differently because that's the only option based on the confines. But if you're in private practice, like you have permission to go back to doing therapy the way that you were taught. Okay, so for those of you who do well with like practical tips of like, okay, Marie, that might sound nice, but like, how do I actually implement this? Here are a few kind of easy to implement takeaways if this is feeling like, I haven't done this before. How do we implement it? One takeaway that I think therapists could do well, as a profession, all of us, I'm including myself, we could all do well to implement just in general is actively seeking out client feedback, to have some built-in system of like, okay, it's been 3 sessions where we've been doing XYZ. That's what we plan to do. How's that working for you? Because, we have other directions we could go. How are you feeling about this? Would you shift anything about that? And also, if you do it regularly, like not once every 6 months and like you're revisiting your treatment plan, but like once every couple sessions, then it just feels normal. And another space to implement this is in consult group. If you don't have anyone else that you're consulting with, start there. I think there's value in not just saying like, hey, I did this treatment with this client, or I did this whatever with this client. Do you think that was okay? And maybe taking in a mindset across the board for all, all members of your consult group, saying like, how else would you consider approaching this? Or like, are there other ways to look at this that I'm missing? I think if there's ways that we can look at the same thing from different angles, that will only help our client care. And if we do put on our marketing hat for a second, again, just kind of looking at these musings of mine here, like, I think it's quite possible that because people feel attuned to that this work is tailored to them, I'm listening, I'm curious, I'm open to pivoting if it's best for their care, they do end up staying longer. Not that my goal is for clients to stay on forever, but I don't want them to keep coming if it's not working. But if it's working, they might be continuing to come while they're still receiving benefit from it. I also think it makes a big difference for word of mouth and referrals, whether that client is spreading word about me, or maybe that client was referred to me by, I don't know, whatever, their couples therapist or whatever, then that couples therapist gets feedback like, Marie's been doing awesome, I love her. So that person remembers it, maybe refers more to me. It starts to build over time. And this idea of like having that very specialized, tailored approach is something that big tech therapy cannot claim in its advertisements. So it really differentiates us in private practice. Now, I'm aware as I share all this, I know that some of you listening are working at burnout levels, whether you're in private practice or not. Maybe you're in a space where there is this sense of like working fast, getting those treatment outcomes churned out quickly, and it might just sound so countercultural even to lean into some of these concepts. But I will stand by what I say of like, I do think if we can access adequate pay for the work that we're doing, then it makes it so much more possible to offer this level of care. That's easier said than done. But I think what we're seeing with like these high productivity requirements, needing to push fast, see more clients, is a byproduct of being so inadequately compensated for our work. Now, private practice is not the only way to have a fulfilling career as a therapist or offer great therapy, but it is its own unique privilege. I don't think it's going anywhere. And it does create an environment where it can be accessible and possible to offer the kind of care that we have been taught to offer. Well, whether you're in private practice or not, I hope that this profession is offering you a sense of joy and meaning. You feel like you're doing meaningful work with the folks that you work with. And if you're freaking out, worried that, private practice is going by the wayside, I hope that this episode just allowed you an opportunity to think about that a little bit differently. I'm holding what I'm sharing with a grain of salt because I am just reflecting on my own experience and sharing from there. So if you have a different perspective, different experience, feel free to chime in in the comments. Like, what did I miss? What are things that maybe I'm sharing from my own bias that I may not realize, could look different in different settings? I think we can kind of fill in some of those gaps in the comments as well. And before we close, I'd like to thank TherapyNotes.com for sponsoring this video. TherapyNotes helps with all of your practice management needs, from scheduling to notes to billing. They have a HIPAA-secure telehealth platform included for free for all users, and a whole suite of AI features to streamline your documentation process. If you'd like to check out TherapyNotes, you can get 2 months to try it for free with no commitment just by clicking the link in the description of this video. Whew. Well, my friends, I took a little bit of a different angle in today's episode. I hope it was helpful to you, or at least got your thought, it tickled your brain, got your thought juices flowing. And until next time, from one therapist to another, I wish you well.